myself speak, I realized that this might be the most vulnerable episode I've ever done. Dad of one to suddenly double promotion, dad of three, right? So it's become like a series of eventful milestones or twists and plot twists. I call Liam my perspective kid. He's giving me a lot of perspective about life and about what is the definition of hard, right? He gives me a lot of that. Nothing I'll do in my life will be as hard as anything he's done in the first 6 months of his life.
Hello. Welcome back to another very, very special podcast episode of the Build in Public podcast, where I'm your host today, Andrew, and I have another wonderful privilege of interviewing the original creator and host of the show, KP, as a way to reflect on a very pivotal and meaningful year that KP had. Thank you for being on the show to share about your experiences, KP.
Andrew, look, I have to thank you, man. You know, you're being extremely kind and modest to me, and it is truly my privilege to, have a host like you come back and, a friend like you more than a host. The design I had in my mind was, it's been a year, right, since my last episode, and it's been, like you said, a very pivotal year. Some of you already know, with so many things that have been going on in my life. And I thought, if I had to, but there's this desire, the burning desire in my heart still, like, about coming back on the podcast. And this is a lifelong passion. I feel like we talked about this last time too. I want to do this for 10 years, 20 years. So I thought, how do I come back? And it because of the heaviness of the year that I had, it felt like the climb back to the track, the normal track, was so hard. And I was just having a lot of self-doubt and just feeling out of touch, out of sync with everything, And I thought, how can I come back? And I thought of you. Like, this is the friend who can help me, give me a hand and pick me up and bring me back on track, because you do it with love, you do it with grace. And I thought, okay, if I can do a solo episode, or if I can do an interview with somebody else where I'm like interviewing about, founder things, maybe it's a great idea to bring Andrew as the host and bring me back so I can reflect on my year and then kind of dust off some of the blues and some of the heaviness, and then just get going from here. So I'm grateful. And as I said, like, that was the intent of inviting you.
Thank you for sharing that back too. It's an honor. And I mean, for listeners who maybe are not as attuned to or know what's been happening for you last year and things going on, I was thinking maybe we could start from October 8th of last year. I know that's when you and your wife Devin gave birth to Theo and Liam. Would you like to share with the world, starting from that point, what has happened in your life? What has been the sequence of events?
It's crazy. It's actually it's August 8th, and August 8th, 2024 was the birthday of two of our twins, the boys. And some of you who've probably just tuned in, like, after a year of hearing from me, this might be news. Which I went from being a dad of one. Neil he's our oldest, right? He's about to be 4 now. So dad of one to suddenly double promotion, dad of 3, right? So this is shocking to us when we found out in ultrasound that it's not just one. We're going to have twins. We found out 2-3 months ago, 3-4 months before delivery, obviously. And I think within a month we found out the gender too. So I was stunned. Like, I went from a dad of 1 boy to dad of 3 boys, which is insane. And so, yeah, August 8th, was the day they were born last year. There's so much that happened. I feel like my life has become like a series of eventful milestones or twists and plot twists and things like that. It's just unbelievable. I feel like I said this a couple of times in the past, and I thought that was the dramatic aspect. And now I'm like, no, like this, there's so much drama. So they were supposed to be born September. So they were born 6 weeks early, which is
Mm.
insane. So they were premature 6 weeks early. I remember packing the go bag that night, the night of August 7th. Um, I actually had a stand-up meeting at Paro, and then one of my team members at Paro asked me, KP, how pregnant is your wife? Like, how many weeks is left? And I'm like, so confidently telling them, no, we got so much time. We're in August. We got time until September 2nd week. Due date's not now yet. We got this. I was telling them we were doing a product and launch at one of the initiatives at Paro, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna own that launch. We're gonna crush this. It's gonna happen next week or something. And the funny thing was, somebody mentioned, I think it was Jess or one of my teammates. She mentioned you can never like really put a number on, like you can really never predict when the babies can be born, right? And I was like, the man in me is like, what are you talking about, right? Of course, I've never been pregnant. How do I know? But sure enough, that night, I packed the bag and we were, just thinking like, yeah, just for a month later, we'll be ready. If need be, we'll put the bag in the car. You never know. And I went to bed and my wife woke me up. And this was like 1:15 or 2 o'clock, I think, in the night, early morning of August 8th. And she said, my water broke. We have to go to the hospital. Like it's just no other chance. They're just coming out. And I was like, what? I told my team I'm going to be there for next week's product and launch. Just kidding. And I texted them saying like, guys, I have to start my paternal leave. And so that's when I started the leave. So anyway, I went there and I drove her to Emory Hospital. Actually, that's where I get this mug from. And yeah, and they were, I think within 4 or 5 hours, they were born. It was a C-section, and it was wild. Again, a C-section is a pretty big deal, surgery, but she recovered really well, and the boys, came out, and I was just in a state of awe. I was getting to hold them and getting to see them, and Liam and Theo, unbelievable. So Theo was born first, and 4 minutes later, Liam was born, as in taken out and so technically Theo is our second kid and Liam is our youngest, and Theo is like the brother. We joke about this all the time because he's like literally a twin, but he has the attitude of like, I'm the big brother when you look at like Liam. But yeah, Liam is our littlest one and we love him, and he's just a phenomenal gift. All of them are, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And would you want to share about, what was going to be a really joyful day for the family? I can imagine when you endeavor to imagine having these twins, just imagine them, be able to give birth, maybe bring them home and start life together. What eventually transpired?
That day, I think there was a prelude to this because while they were doing sort of some tests and ultrasounds a couple months before birth, they identified that one of our twins, which we didn't know at the time who it's going to be, has a congenital heart disease, a severe and advanced congenital heart disease, which basically means like a birth. They basically have this at birth, and the specific one that they told us is HLHS. Right, HLHS is hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And first of all, I never even heard about this, So as you can imagine, I was like shocked. We were riding the highs of finding out that we're going to have twins, and we have all these decorations planned, and we had all these like, baby shower planned, and we were busy with that. And then one of those medical visits we had, I was there with Devin when the doctor came out and he was sort of looked concerned, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he said, like, unfortunately, you have to go to a bigger facility because they have to do extensive testing. Because what we feel, the preliminary testing we did, I think we think that it's HLHS. So you have to go to the bigger CHOA, which is the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta facility, which is a huge hospital system that they recommended we go to. We went there, and then of course they confirmed that yes, one of the babies does have HLHS. So what it really means is, so for healthy, normal human beings, we have the heart, and the heart's got two ventricles, right? Left ventricle, right ventricle. So each ventricle basically is doing the job of pumping blood to parts of the body, right? And it's basically like, it works like a pump, right? It just squeezes and releases, squeezes. So when you squeeze, the blood like goes everywhere, releases, the blood comes back. Now, and heart and lungs work in conjunction, right? Because lungs send the oxygenated blood, right? Because lungs add the oxygen from like our breath, adds the oxygen to a blood and becomes the rich oxygenated blood, which is really, really what our cells and organs need, right? Let's say our kidney. Our kidney just doesn't need blood. It needs the rich oxygenated blood. So it has to basically be blood that's rich, very rich in oxygen. And so that's what lung does. And then heart just basically squeezes it and transfers that through arteries and gets to the specific organs. So in the case of HLHS, what happens is the left ventricle is severely underdeveloped. So, it's almost like 5% present as opposed to the full structure. So it's a structural abnormality, and there's really no reason why this happens. She had a very normal, straightforward pregnancy, Devin, and we had the same, we went through everything we did with Neil the same way. It's nothing about lifestyle, nothing about sort of anything. If you Google this too, like we were Googling a lot too, like it's just, it's one of those heart defects that just happens, right? And so we were shocked. And so let me finish the technicality of here. So the effects of this, so if you have HLHS, what happens to the left heart ventricle, like I said, is much smaller, so it doesn't really function as effectively. And the real use case or the real function of left ventricle of the heart is to squeeze and pump blood for the rest of the body, right? All the organs like your kidneys and your brain and all of the rest of the body organs, they wait for the blood coming from the left ventricle. And the right one pumps it to the lungs. So they divide the jobs that way, right? And in the case of hypoplastic, which is much smaller left ventricle, it just doesn't really, it can't function. So the left ventricle has to do the job of both the ventricles, which is crazy, So when it squeezes, most of the blood goes to lungs as it normally would, and then whatever's left, goes to the rest of the body. So the rest of the body is always at risk of not getting enough oxygenated blood because it's depending on just one ventricle. And so the way it manifests in symptoms or in the way you see it is his toes and fingers and like organs and like, brain, like kidneys, whatever, all of these like belly, digestion, all of these functions, especially it shows up in oxygenation, levels, right? So they call it saturation levels. Oxygen saturation is the technical word, which is basically a pulse ox. If you put a pulse ox and you'll see, you and I would have 100, right, Andrew, or 99 typically. That means that the percentage of oxygenated blood that's here at this tip is 100% or 99%, right? In his case, it'll be like 65%, and that's problematic because the organ will shut off after a certain threshold. So, that's the symptoms. And so basically like, his organs can shut off and, it can be a severe thing. We were shocked, we were devastated, and we were like, we know what to do. We never heard anyone having this. The closest thing I can think of is like I had someone as one of my extended family members had what they called hole in the heart, which I don't know the technical term for that, but It was resolved. It was fixed when it was a surgery right after birth. And so, we were devastated, shocked. We didn't know what would happen. So our biggest question was like, what can be done? In terms of, yes, we got the diagnosis, but like in terms of cure or care. And they basically pointed us to this research about these three surgeries that have to happen to correct and adjust the blood flow. And I'm again so stunned. And at the time, I couldn't believe that this is real. I couldn't believe that this can even be done, or this is like even possible, because I almost thought like for almost 2 months I went into shock and denial, and almost like a very heavy, like, why is this happening to me, to our family? What have I done wrong? Or it was just a very rough patch. I put on a brave face, not even a brave. I put on like a normal, just a I'm okay kind of neutral face at work and everywhere, and I just kind of was hoping like somehow. I don't know. This was like I felt like a nightmare. It's like, oh, I was hoping somehow this would just disappear. I was thinking maybe some of the later ultrasounds would like show us that this would be an anomaly, and like, no, sorry, there was a misdiagnosis. No, it's actually normal, and it didn't happen. And the other twin, didn't have anything, so which was even baffling. His heart was completely healthy, normal. All the functions we talked about were completely normal, and it was only one twin. And anyway, so long story short, that twin, happened. We eventually named that twin Liam, right? That boy, Liam Pavan. And oh my God, I think he's such a warrior now. We're 7 months in the journey. The HLHS, treatment essentially involves three major surgeries, open heart surgeries. And the first one is within like 10, 15 days. So the first surgery happened within 14 days. And the next surgery happened a month ago from when we were talking now. So it's actually end of Feb. Yeah, Feb 24th, the second surgery. And both of them were successful. And, he showed so much resilience and so much, grit, and sort of gave me a lot of faith that, we can navigate this difficult chapter. And right now, as we speak, frankly, I don't feel those many strong emotions around like fear and like, the heaviness, because I think as we get through this now, I'm like living in the reality, no longer like worrying about the future reality. I'm just like sort of living in it. So it doesn't feel that sort of crazy and scary. But the last 7 months have been quite the ride, So that's what happened, So Theo is, like I said, the second kid, completely normal. This is how Theo looks now. I'm going to show you a picture. That's Theo. And this is how Liam looks now. Look at this champion. He greets me every day,
Wow.
With that smile. He's still in the hospital. He's still in the ICU as we speak. We're speaking today is March 7th. Yeah, he's still in the ICU recovering from the last surgery. He's having a slow recovery. But I want to talk about the surgeries and the kind of like impact they had about things in a second with you. But I wanted to show you one more thing, which I think is really, really important. This was the day he went into the first surgery, 14 days after birth. And look at how small he was. Remember, I told you that both the twins were 6 weeks early. So 14 days means they were like 4 weeks early than due date. And they were like so tiny. I forgot the weight, but it was not probably more than 4 or 5 pounds. And look at how many machines he had around him. This is the ICU. And he had a ventilator, breathing tube down his throat. And it was so scary. And, he's so resilient. And the kid, dude, again, God is great. I feel like, it's renewed my faith in God and the universe. And this was him. This is him for the second surgery, right? So it's called Glenn. The surgery is called Glenn. And this first one is called Norwood. And my favorite part is him. This is literally a few minutes away before. So him as they were wheeling him into surgery, that is the expression he had, you know? And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's peak, courage in my books. And so I call Liam my perspective kid. He's giving me a lot of perspective about
Hmm.
life and what is the definition of hard, right? He gives me a lot of that every day. So
Hmm. Can you share more about that? I know you talked about, I mean, podcast listeners who have heard you before would know that you're somebody who has a great zest and optimism for life, has a deep foundational belief around grit, perseverance, resilience that was already part of your being. But what is something going through this, especially being there with Liam, witnessing him on this 7 month journey? What are new layers of those lessons that you were able to learn? Those new perspectives. I'm curious.
I think first thing that comes to my mind is he raised the ceiling. He raised the ceiling of what you know, like perseverance means to me, right? Like I think
Mm.
before that episode or before that chapter in my life, I thought I was like, on a scale of 0 to 10, I was like maybe 7 in my mind. Like I'm like perseverance wise, I'm like, yeah, I'm like 7. Most people are like maybe 3. And just kidding. But like I thought, like I'm way higher because even my childhood was sort of difficult in the perspective of like being born in a very humble, like poor family, and then lower income, and then maybe like middle class in India towards the time I was 22, and then I moved to America. But so I had more financial struggles as a kid, and so I tolerated a lot. I had so much perseverance, and I kind of built my own life. So self-made and everything. So that was sort of the lens with which I viewed. So the pain tolerance, the pain and suffering tolerance, I thought I had like 7, right, on a scale of 10.
Mm.
After Liam's episode and like this chapter, he raised my bar to like say, Dad, it's not, like you can go to 9.5, right? You can go to 9.9 because he's born with 9.9. Like he's probably born with a perfect 10 in terms of like, think about like, I go to my annual physical appointments with doctors, right, once a year, and then I dread that day because they poke you all around, and they're like, it's just an uncomfortable feeling because they draw blood from you. He's gotten, and this makes me a little like tear up because he's gotten like I lost track of how many times he's been poked and how many
Mm.
times I have to say it's crossed probably 2,000 times easily. And my other kid, when I take Theo to the vaccination, when they poke him like for vaccines, this it's a big deal, right? Any parent can relate to this. When you take your baby to a doctor for vaccination, they like, give them 3 or 4 shots, and you're like, oh, it's a big deal. They're like crying, and it's like that happens every hour for him, every hour, and they do like every 3 hours they draw blood from him because he's in the ICU, right? And almost like every 5-6 days they have to insert a new line, through the vein. Like if one thing doesn't work, and they have to go to the other one, and it's just it's unbelievable. It's like I feel like I'm witnessing. If you're on the floor of ICU, cardiac ICU especially, whether it's for babies or small kids in the children's hospital, I feel like you're witnessing the Olympics of pain and suffering, right? Like it's unlike anything we've seen, right? And until like let's say last year, my biggest like hesitations or my biggest frustrations were, man, traffic jam, like it's like it's just our level of things we complain about and we feel like upset about. Somebody said something on Twitter about me, or that podcast only got 25 views. You get a lot of perspective because those are like little league problems. This is the Olympics level problems, right? And so you get to like be airlifted from the microscopic bullshit that doesn't matter, trivial things that don't matter, and then you go to the things that really matter, like health, and like life, and what does it mean to care for someone, and like what does it mean to be on the fence of like potentially losing them that day or that surgery, or what does it mean to say goodbye, what does it mean, every day, what does it mean to like worship every day like it's a gift from God, because it is, and so things like that really raised the ceiling, like it raised the ceiling for me about pain and suffering. I think Jensen, founder of Nvidia, talks about this. Like, I think he jokingly said, like, there's nothing I can wish upon you more than like heavy, ample doses of pain and suffering. He was talking to Stanford grad school graduates who were asking, how do you become outstanding in life or whatever? And then he was saying, like, I mean, I just literally went through pain and suffering, and that's how I got, to where I am. I got better. I feel like he's taught me so much of that, how to maintain hope through the tunnel of darkness, right? How to believe that there's light, and there's literally no proof. Like, I remember first time when they wheeled him into Norwood surgery, the first surgery. They told us it's going to be 6 or 7 hours of open heart surgery, which means they have to like break his rib cage, right? Pierce through, and then the baby was this long, right? Like a small baby, and the scar was like 80%. It's literally this long, the scar, because he was so tiny at the time. And they have to break through the rib cage, get into the heart, and the heart was the size of a strawberry. Think about operating on the heart the size of a strawberry, right? And so, like, I trust them, and I'm so grateful for the doctors. That's another feeling. So the levels, like I said, there's layers to this. One layer is the perspective of like, I should be grateful. I should be thankful about my own health. Like every day that you don't spend in an ICU, you hit the fucking lottery. Like you should be celebrating every day, right? For whatever reason, if you're not in the ICU, that's a brilliant blessing. So one, that's perspective. Like, oh, the level of pain that so many people go through is we don't even think about that. We don't even, and we think that the pains that we have, the headaches and migraines, we're like, oh, it's not, right? So that you got to raise your ceiling. And second thing is the gratitude that I felt for so many thankless heroes who just are angels among us in this society, right? And like one of our surgeons, his name's Dr. Chai, he literally saved his life 2 times because he did the main surgery. I'm talking about the 2 surgeries. And I mean, I cannot control what happens in that room because we're outside the room, right? The OR is in the room. And for 6 hours, they have to put him to sleep, which is using anesthesia, which is another anesthesia specialist, which is another angel, because it's not an easy thing to put a baby to sleep and wake him up using anesthesia, right? And then the 15 to 20 technicians around him, like a respiratory technician, these like all these people who are doing blood transfusion. There's all kinds of nurses and all that, and then there's a chief surgeon who has to make sure that low strawberry, he has to get the right slice and the right adjustment and the right, like what, right? What a miracle that is, And then he did it. It took 6 hours, but he did it. And then, we were waiting outside in the room, and I think that was the longest 6 hours of my life. At the same time, and then it happened again, right, with Glenn, the second surgery. Again, longest 6-7 hours of my life. All I did was be outside the room and hold my wife's hand, and just constantly pray, constantly send him good vibes, and tell him how proud we are of him and how much in awe I am of him. And it's just, the human resilience is unbelievable, man. We are so much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for and we push ourselves for, So I think my takeaway from that experience was like, I think I've gotten a lot more resilient. And it sounds like a braggy thing, but I feel like it's just I'm like not so much afraid of pain anymore. How that's the way I would put it. I mean, physical pain, yes. Like if you slap me, I probably would like reflect reaction. But like the real pain and suffering of life, I think is I'm not so much afraid of it. I will just I think I've learned to be neutral with it. Don't put labels to it. The other thing I learned is whatever initiative you pick up, It could be the surgery. It could be for that day was a surgery, or it could be another day. It could be another challenge. For us, it could be another initiative. It could be something in projects, something in sales, something in whatever initiative you pick up. Don't label this as, oh, it's going to be hard or it's going to be easy. I think I've learned that if I assumed, oh, the surgery is going to be hard, I think it didn't really serve. It wouldn't serve. The takeaway I had was like, there's no such thing as easy or hard. You make it what you make it. So many people now ask me like, how's life like now with Liam and this whole thing, and I'm like, I don't think it's hard. I think it's different. And like I said, if you see the rewards that I've been getting, the beautiful blessings and the lessons I'm taking away, in fact, it's almost like a positive thing, which is crazy, right? So there's no such thing as hard or easy. I think if you approach something as neutral and say, all right, this is an experience. I'm going to go into this experience with no judgments of what this is, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. I'm going to navigate through this, and I'm going to come out of it. You are far more likely to survive and actually thrive if you do it that way, as opposed to if you have labels thinking, oh, this is hard. Like finding a new job. It's not hard. It's not easy. It's just a journey. Finding the love of your life. It's not easy, not hard. It's just a journey. The people who've done it successfully, if you ask them, was it easy? Was it hard? They'll say, I mean, we did it. Like, it was hard in the beginning and it was easy in the end, but it doesn't matter, right? So your sort of labeling of the upcoming experiences is actually doing you a disservice, and what I think the other thing I learned is like, there's so much that there's so many things, so many outcomes, so many events that are beyond your control. You can't do, like, so much of life is actually beyond our control, right? And we are so paranoid about trying to control everything, right? Like, I could not control birth of them 6 weeks early. I could not control Liam having HLHS. I could not control the positive side of like the finding a great doctor like Dr. Chai. And I could not control like him doing unbelievable miracles, through surgeries. I can't control any of that, right? So you realize like there's no need to like be paranoid about this has to be this way, that has to be this way. I think the best things I've done is I've at every turn tried to manifest the outcome that I would love to have, and held faith, like strong faith, pushed myself to believe in him and in God, because those are the two real sort of players, him and in God, and let things unpack themselves, and being brave enough to be ready for the outcome, I think is the hard part. And because there's no choice, like what else can I do? Like, I can't go into the operation room and like, what, let me just help you, right? So yeah, I mean, those are some things I learned. I think the hard thing, the thing that I take away is the like I said, like the definition of hardship and courage, right? Like, I feel like they erased the meaning of that for me. Nothing I'll do in my life will be as hard as anything he's done in the first 6 months of his life. Think about that. Nothing I will do in my life, which I'm already 36, and if I live to like 85, nothing I'll do in my whole life will ever be as hard as he's already demonstrated in the first 6 months of his life. I'll give you another perspective. I shared this yesterday on Twitter. Out of his 7 months of life, nearly 7 months now, Liam has spent 95% of that life in the hospital, in the cardiac wing. 95%. Think about how much time you spend in society, you and I, at Starbucks, in your beautiful house, or in your bedroom, on the freaking bed, right? How much time we spend? We spend 100% of the time in society, right? Unless someone who is listening to this from a hospital. 95% of his existence on this planet Earth, he spent in the cardiac wing of the hospital. In that 95%, 80% of that he spent in the ICU, which is the scariest place to be. I was dreading when they were first time, after his birth. On the day of his birth, they moved him from one hospital to the other one because the other one, the first one didn't have a advanced, cardiac ICU. And went to that. The words ICU were so scary because think about who wants, like, if the door says ICU, do you want to go in? Right? It's like it's the
Yeah.
last place you want to be in, right?
Yeah.
And it's 80% of what I said. Like I said, 95% was in the hospital, and then 80% of that 95% he was in the ICU. And every single day I had to walk past the door to see him. Every single day I walked past the door. Every single day I walked past my fear and my dread of what could happen on the other side. And I've done it now 7 months, and so was my wife. And I think that's what I'm saying. That is perspective, right? Like, that is perspective. Like, when you know that it's the place that scares you the most. It's like, it's the place that I've never, by the way, I've never been to the only one time I've been to the ICU was one time in my 36 years with my grandma in India when she had a heart surgery. She had a stent put in, and that was just one day that I went and visited. And then within like 2-3 days, they brought her out to the regular unit. And then, that's it. Now she lives with my mom, and, she's doing great. But that was the only one time. And it was a very scary one, whatever week for us, the whole family, right? So what I'm saying is that is the perspective that he's given us, that, don't attach any label. There's no such thing as scary. There's no such thing as hard. It is an ICU. It's an experience. You go in there, you look around, and the first 5-6 days I was scary, and I was scared, and I was like, oh my God. I was depressed and all that. But over time you realize, look, every one of these kids here, because it's a kids ICU, every one of these kids is a hero, right? It's like I should look at them like I would look at LeBron, like Michael Jordan, or whoever, like a veteran from Afghanistan or something, because it's the same thing, that what's happening to their body, the amount of pain and suffering the body is taking, these kids, is the same of someone on the war field. Literally the same thing. It's literally people chopping them up, like all these things that they're doing, like their blood transfusion. So some of these kids actually have like a weekly blood transfusion. So the whole blood is being emptied and refilled through another kind person's blood. So, dude, like, it's just, when you go through this, it just changes you. I think, I don't think I have some people go through this and they're like, oh my God, PTSD style, like traumatized. I actually don't, as I walked out of it, now that I'm 7 months in, I don't feel like I was traumatized. I was like inspired. And I'm continuing. That's why I wanted to come back and do the podcast, because I want to bring that to normal society, like where you and I live. And we're upset that the guy in front of us in Starbucks is taking too long for this coffee, right? That's the bullshit upset, thing of the day. And I think I called you one of those days when I left the hospital, and I told you, and I about one of the lines that my mind gave me was like, you better be grateful for your life, for everything you have in your life. Your career, great, but even if you like up and down, it's okay. You're blessed. Be grateful, because every one of those kids on that floor, there's actually 3 or 4 floors there. There's maybe like 70, 80 units. Every one of those babies and kids will happily trade their life with yours. Given a chance. We have it. Like we are so blessed. We're so grateful. And we should be grateful. So we have it in an easier way, in my view. And I'm not dissing anyone's sort of hardships. I'm just saying the perspective. Like, the best way to know if you have 2 pencils, like best way to know if you got a shorter pencil is to put the longer pencil next to it, and then you're like, oh, actually, you know what? This is actually really tiny. Like it can be. So that's what I feel. And then the ICU outside that room. I mean, outside the unit, there is a little coffee shop, or like a coffee bar or something. Not a bar, but it's like a little coffee area. And I sat there and I took a couple work meetings and I ran a couple cohort sessions for paddle. And I felt so proud that, you know, I was able to do that. Like if you asked me 10 years ago that KP, you would have the human will to be brave enough, strong enough to run a cohort session and like inspire, like, I don't know, X number of people outside the ICU where your son, who's your baby, is in getting care, whatever, because life must go on and I can't be on leave forever. I would be so proud of myself if I did that, and I did that. And the people who knew that I did that were so proud of me too. And so I think, it's just like I said, it only made me stronger, man, in a weird way, and it made me humbler. It made me way humbler. When I'm with Liam, I'm like, I feel like I'm with a saint. I feel like he's a saint in the body of a tiny baby, and I'm just so like I feel so small compared to him. I feel like so small, and I have nothing but love and grace and gratitude for him, for everything he's gone through. It's like when when you meet someone, like I said, like when you meet someone who's a veteran, and they've gone through so much, their body has gone through so much. You just have an immediate respect for them, and out of nowhere, right? You just feel instantaneously humbled by their presence. I feel like that with him every day. So anyway, and yet he greets me with a smile. Like, he's gone through so much, doesn't care. He just greets me with a smile and then reminds me, like, be happy.
Yeah. That was beautiful, KP. Thank you for sharing all that. I think what was most beautiful to witness in the resilient quality that you're talking about, which is even through this blurriness of the pixel right now, just based on the way you shared, I can feel the qualities that you were trying to put words to, trying to have the listener witness you on. But what I could really feel was a lot of powerful acceptance when you were talking about, like, not putting labels, to be able to go through this entire thing that someone can label as traumatic, that you found a lot of deep love and acceptance.
Yes, surrender. I've used that word. I've used that mentally. I've said that many, many times to myself, that I surrender to this experience. Because the first 1-2 months I fought it, and it was so heavy to fight, and it was so devastating to keep fighting, and then tiring, and I felt, just like lifeless, because I was like, and the tricky thing is, the role that I'm in right now, Andrew, is that I cannot collapse because so many people around me depend on me. My wife depends on me for me to be stable and talk to the doctors and maintain a level of sanity. And I need the house. We need to keep going. The family has to keep going, right? So I have 3 kids. We have to feed them, right? And we have bills we have to pay. And so my family in India, right? So I feel like my role, I think that I'm a leader. I'm the leader of my family, and my role cannot collapse. It's like the CEO, of a small corporation. I've joked about this, like, even without all of this, I always say, like, you're the CEO of your life, right? You are the hero of your life. You are the protagonist, right? You write your story. You're both the director and the actor of your life, right? And sometimes, you are in a scene that you don't like, and you're like, oh man, why am I here in this scene? Then go back and rewrite the scene, re-narrate it in a different way, or have a better ending for this, right? So in the first 2-3 months, I was like devastated and sad and depressed and like lifeless, essentially, low energy, and it really had an impact on people around me. It really had an impact, and I was like, I can't do this to them. I owe it to them that I have to be stronger. And then, more importantly, like, the real pain, the actual physical pain is being being burdened and carried by Liam. And what he needs is a strong dad next to him. He needs a strong support. My mom was here. So I asked my mom to please come. and spend some time with me as we're going through this. And I think, she's my belief capitalist, right? And I love to give belief to others, and she gives me belief, and she's amazing with perspective and spiritual practices. And so she once told me a beautiful line that really sort of helped me pick up myself, because I was feeling a little down and sad about self-pity and all that. And then she told me this line I wanted to share, which is, she said, you know, if you think that, why me, you got to stop thinking that. If you think, why me, why did this happen to me, like, and she said, like, it's not that you think that it happened by accident, as in like Liam, he just suddenly had this was like an accidental thing that we had, HLHS or whatever. She said, from the spiritual point of view, from her point of view, she said, Liam chose me before he was born. And of course, this is like a spiritual interpretation. She said, Liam's soul chose me and our family, including her. She was saying, like, his grandma and my wife and me, because out of the 8 billion people on the planet, he knows we have the strength to take this. And he knows we have the love in our heart to offer, the depth of love we have to offer. And he knows we can withstand, survive, and thrive in this experience rather than collapse. And he came into this world wanting you to be his dad. Are you going to deny that request? Are you going to show him that he chose wrong? And I was like, wow. And she said, he even brought the pain upon himself, not on you. He's taking the 99% of the real pain, the real surgeries. You're not being wheeled into the hospital. He's being wheeled. He's in the hospital. You're in society. Right? I mean, you get to visit him and all that, but like, he is the one who is got 17 machines around him, who's got all these wires, tubes, everything, breathing tube and everything. He even is doing the 99.99% of this experience. The pain of this is really on him. Your job is to be the world's greatest support system and dad that he can expect you to be, or he deserves to have. That's what your purpose is in this role. It's not to erase the reality. It's not to change the reality. You're not God. You can't like tweak timelines and all that. This is the challenge you're called upon. You got to rise. Think about that. And I was like, fired up. I felt like God was talking to me through my mom. And the needless, the sadness and the self-pity and like, why me? All of that went away. And I'm like, this is the divine purpose. This is a mission. This is something that I need to step up to, and I need to be there for him, in this capacity, which while being there for him, I have to be there for my family. And so there's no space for me to be sad and, weak and, and like helpless and whatever, like a victim. And she said, you're not a victim. This is not a victim situation, right? He's also not a victim. She said this, and she said, he's also not a victim. He is the victor. He is a victor. So my wife took that and she said, she wants to name him Warrior, and so she found the name Liam, which means warrior, right? And I wanted to give him a middle name, and I was thinking about what could be the good one. And the Hindu god Hanuman really inspires me because he's known to be the god of strength and power, and he's also a selfless, sacrificial, very giving, God. And so one of his synonyms, one of his other names is Pavan, and I also have my one of my many names is Pavan. So I thought Liam and I could have the connection. Most people don't know that one of my, in my long Indian name, there's a word Pavan. So I thought Liam and I could have the connection. So I wanted Pavan to be his middle name. So his name's Liam Pavan in Puvara, which is our family name. Anyway, so I think that one perspective shift changed everything, Andrew. Her words changed everything. That's it. I think that's what I needed to hear. And then I kind of dusted myself off and like stopped feeling sad for myself or for our family and be like, it's all right. It's okay. I'm not saying like immediately we went into like rainbows and, roses, but we started being more resilient. We started being like, stop putting the focus on us, put the focus on him. What does he need? What can we give to him? How can we be joyful around him, supportive around him, happy around him? And he started slowly opening up. In fact, for the first 3-4 months, he didn't even smile. For a single day, he never smiled. He was in so much pain. And and our other twin at home used to smile and be normal, and just I think a month before the second surgery, about 5 months into the game, he started smiling, and that just changed everything. And I was like, yes, I felt so grateful, and I think he could sense that we were going through pain too, and maybe he was closed off or something. I don't know. And then he started smiling, and then now the nurses, they say, please, it's the joke now. My wife and I, when we hold him, because he's got all these things, so it's not easy to just pick him up and hold. So we need the nurses to come assist to help. So the nurses are like, oh my God, we were waiting for you, this morning, because he was fussy, and we know like the moment you guys are here, mom or dad, he's gonna like smile so wide, and he's gonna, they say that he's a very different baby around us, which is not shocking, right? Obviously, we're his parents, but I think, I think he started like really opening up and really like, I think that he realized that, okay, mom and dad are okay, they're not in so much trauma or pain now, and so. Anyway, so that was that. Crazy experience, man.
One of the things another beautiful thing that I think you shared once about what this experience has gifted you is seeing the love of your family and your support system, how people came together. Can you share about what that experience has been like for you?
Oh my God, that's another thing. I think a lot of people, they were, when I shared this news on Twitter, everywhere, they were like, how are you going to, we're sending you strong vibes and this and that. And I feel like there was a lot of concern about how we are going to manage this, which is fair. If I heard about this about some other family, I would be like, oh my God, how are they going to navigate this? It's very hard for the mom and dad. It's very hard. But in our case, I feel like we're so blessed. I'm so blessed that my in-laws have stepped up. They live like very close to our house. And so they've been very giving, very kind in terms of taking care of some of the logistics, of handling our oldest kid, because we have to make these daily trips to the hospital. So somebody has to watch the oldest kid and also watch the small twin, right? The tiny Theo. So they've been phenomenal, stepping up and helping, and so much of support and love from them. Like there have been a couple of times where when Liam eventually came home, like I said, 95% in the hospital, 5% home. That 5% was also not a like a steady, stable path. It had a lot of ups and downs. Where one of the days he was desatting, which is basically his pulse ox was showing like 65, 7, yeah. His range after the surgery should be 75 to 85 of pulse ox, and it was showing like 65, 62, which is concerning for them. After like 3-4 minutes of that steady rate, they ask you to call them, and we call them, and so they were like, this is not looking good. And he was turning blue on the face, which is like a sign of lack of oxygenated blood going to his face. So it's not good. So they said, you need to come to ER. And it was like midnight. And my mother-in-law, she, like I said, they don't live that far away, but like they disrupted their whole thing, and then they came over. And my wife on that day was watching. I think she was exhausted for some reason, whatever, and she was watching the twins. So she came in the car, my mother-in-law, and drove with me to the ER, holding and sitting next to Liam. It's a very precarious place to be, right next to a baby who's desatting, and we're driving to the hospital. Anything can happen, right? And she's just there as a steady rock. She's very, very stable and steady, and she was like, KP, you drive. We got this. It's okay. We're gonna be okay. You drive. You focus on the road. Don't focus on what's in the back seat. And she gave me a lot of courage, and And luckily, we admitted him in the ER, and they took him to ICU again, and they discovered that he had a rhinovirus, which is basically like a common cold for you and I, but for him, a common cold because of the first surgery can be complicated. Like you need after the second surgery, it's fine, but just after the first surgery, you couldn't have infections like that, right? So he was admitted, and then he had to stay there for a few days. So the level of sort of support I've gotten from our in-laws, unbelievable. They love their grandkids so much, and us, and I think I'm so thankful, right? Like this whole experience has shown me how loving people can be. How much they step up. And my mom, she came from India. She stayed with us through and through. And she left actually in November, but she was there from like July to November. So she's been the spiritual support for me. Without her narrative in my brain, I don't think I could have powered through all of this. Because it's very hard to use common sense and like logical mind to go through this. You need like supernatural powers. You can't just like rely on like, oh yeah, I'm reading psychologytoday.com and like I'm fine, right? You can't. So she gave me that support. My sister came in December, and she's so selfless. She put her career on hold for 2.5 months and did so many things for us, including taking care of the babies at home so we can, the kids at home so we can spend there. And the emotional support, physical, unbelievable, man. So I'm grateful. Everyone stepped up, and it's just unbelievable. I think so many people, Devin's her colleagues, they've like come together, like given us funds, given us like some, they basically came together, just giving us funds, money to like, it's not like thousands of dollars, but like, it's basically like so that to offer like, for us as we're making these trips, for coffee money or Starbucks money, this and that. And I think, all of those really matter. I think the feeling, the worst feeling is feeling isolated and like lonely. And it's, sometimes like the small thought of someone thinking about you and sending you coffee really can make your day. I never thought it would, because I'm like, I don't need anybody. I'm like, I'm so strong, right? But it does, it does, because you're dealing with so much, and like one less decision, someone helped you, like, it's a relief. And I want to give a shout out to Zach, who's one of my good friends, Zach Gilbert, and then another really kind person, Michael. They sent me some Uber Eats money, so because we're especially on surgery days, we're mostly through and through in the hospital, so we have no time to come home and cook anything, right? So they've been phenomenal sending, and it's not just like I said, it's the thought that counts. And yeah, I mean, and then hundreds of supportive messages, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and everywhere. Even yesterday when I posted about his update, so many people have DM'd me, sent me an amazing slew of positive messages, thoughts. I think a lot of people stepped up, and they're, it just showed me the bright side of so many people. So I'm grateful for that. I knew I had a big network. I knew a lot of friends. I knew that I had a very strong network, but to watch so many people show the human side, not just work side, career side, right? It was so heartwarming. And then I cannot forget Paddle, my team at Paddle, unbelievable. I don't think I would have been able to navigate this if I was at any other company, the way I was able to here. They are unbelievably supportive. They've given me 4 months of paternal leave, which is the company policy, but like I was able to split that into 2 parts. One, when the first surgery, and second, with the second surgery, so I can be there, post surgery and before surgery for Liam, and the level of love and just support, and like saying like, we got this, like AI Launchpad stuff that I've been working on, we got this, you focus on family. I mean, that attitude and that sort of temperament and like love and support system that I have at Paddle is unbelievable. I'm so grateful to Andrew, who is our CMO, and Jess, and then Tarshan, three of my amazing people. and so many others on my team too. But just like that, otherwise, I don't think I would have been at peace with him doing all this, right? And so it gives me so much more gratitude and makes me realize, like, makes me want to do way more, for paddle or for my work, because I feel like that support is there and makes me like, like feel grateful and like even more fired up when I'm present, when I'm with them. So it's been crazy. I mean, so many other stuff. I mean, like, I feel like I'm losing track of, like, I mean, there have been friends like Sharath, who send groceries. Sharath lives in Atlanta and his family. So they've like, picked up groceries for us a bunch of times, sent them home and brought them home. And, our neighbors, so it's wild. I have to talk about one more experience of like buying a home, which we'll get to at some point, either now or in the future. It also was a phenomenal sort of experience there. But anyway.
In the final minutes, if there's someone listening who is currently experiencing or going through similar shoes as you, either they're parents who are experiencing kids with HLHS, whether they are going through all their own versions of hardships and sufferings, or they're witnessing that, what are some words of wisdom you like to share with them directly?
Wow. I've never thought about that question. I think the first thing comes to my mind is recognize that it is one of the most difficult things that you'll ever do in your life. So be as graceful as possible with yourself, which is very hard to do, but you must. It's like you go from like lifting in your gym, let's say, the dumb metaphor, to suddenly now in the Olympics, and you're like looking around and like everything feels like 1,000 more pounds. Everything feels so hard. Like you just life went from like I said, little league to Olympics, and here unfortunately you can't quit. You can't be like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to my other life. Like you can't. It's just you're in the Olympics now. Like this is a high pressure, intense environment. So I think it's easy to say I know that because I've struggled with it initially, to sort of give myself grace. I'm like, what do you mean grace? Like, what? I don't want this reality. I want to go back to my reality. Like before the day I found out about the kids, about HLHS, right? You can't. And so that doesn't mean you're also sort of the cursed one, or like, it's like God chose you out of people to like, yeah, punishing you. It's not punishment. It's not that you're cursed or unlucky. You're the chosen one. And it sounds so corny to say that, right? But it is true. You are the chosen family. Because whatever you will experience with your kid, with your baby, will transform you for the better. Unbelievably. Like it's not even a comparison. Like this version of KP compared to 10 years ago version of KP is like 1,000,000 times different in terms of maturity, in terms of evolution, in terms of pain tolerance, in terms of just, knowing myself in and out, knowing my connection to God, appreciation for life, appreciation for people in my life. The other thing that happened on a side note is I called almost like 6 to 7 people who I had bridges built, and sort of not bridges, but like, barriers and dams built. And I called them and apologized, and like basically like it erased my ego and like this mental fight that I had with these people. They're not enemies per se, but basically I put them out of my life, or thinking like, I just had like an egotistical view, like, oh, they didn't like appreciate me enough, or they didn't like do this enough, or I called all of them and personally apologized, each one of them, which was very scary and painful for me to do that phone call. But I did it because after Liam's experience, I realized life is truly precious. Like your every day is precious, and we're given one shot to be a human being born with healthy life, and It's a priceless experience to be human. It's meaningless to carry grudges, to put on these weights, metaphysical weights, whatever, metaphorical weights on your back because someone wronged you. Because, and then I like, you have to learn to forgive. You have to learn to like, part of growing up is learning to forgive and letting people be themselves and knowing that they may sometimes have missteps. That doesn't define them. Don't make the misstep be the identity of the person, right? Try to like zoom out from that and then focus on the love that they've given you or the care or the affection they've given you in some other ways. And then, yes, the misstep may have hurt you. If you are bold enough, address that and say, that pained me. Maybe don't do that again, or I didn't like that, but I forgive you. But focus more on the goodness of people around you while you're on this planet, because life is truly short. Every day I take a trip through the halls of the ICU, and I think life is truly short. Sometimes one of the rooms that I go to, the bed is there, the kid is missing. So what does that mean? There's positive things, the negative things. The kid could have gone home, which is the amazing outcome, or the kid must have gone somewhere else, left the planet. So it just really humbled me and reminded me, this persona I'm putting up together, like KP, oh, you wronged me in 2020, 22, doesn't matter. So I call every one of them, thanked me for the call. Every one of them almost broke down. Every one of them said they love me, and I told I love them, and it's changed me. It made me lighter, so much lighter, my heart. And I don't think I would have had the balls and the guts to do that, if not for Liam's experience. So I think, like I said, back to the parents thing, it will change you for the better, for sure. It will change you, transform you. But, if the other last thing I'll say is, of course, please talk to another parent who's going through something like this, or another parent who's going through like anything like similar, right? May not be exactly the same diagnosis, and please reach out to me if I can help, because I'm always there. I'm happy to share my experience, be a sounding board, anything. I think this is it may not be just HLHS. This is a call to action for any parents, who have kids who are going through any amount of difficulties or health issues or challenges. Please DM me. I can be a sounding board. I can help give you some perspective, be a friend, because that's what I know would have helped me in the journey, and I got the help. So that's all.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, KP. Thank you for sharing your love with us today. And what I feel most moved by is to hear you share the gifts, the resilience that Liam, the perspective that Liam taught you and gifted to me and to the world with this conversation. So thank you for showing up the way you have, the strength that you've exhibited.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And as I've realized, as I sort of heard myself speak, I realized that this might be the most vulnerable episode I've ever done my whole life. And so, if anyone's listening, and if you feel like, oh, I'll keep you overshared, or like if I like overstepped my, limits, please excuse me. But I wanted to have sort of a very honest and open, candid conversation. And I knew that I could do that with someone like Andrew. And I knew that when we capture that and then present it to, the rest of the podcast audience and my friends and everyone, I think they will get it. They will get where I'm coming from. So that's what the intention was. And I'm so thankful to you, Andrew. The time just passed so quickly. So grateful. And hopefully this can help be a springboard for me to come back and do more episodes this season when I get some time. But either way, I'm grateful for you, your friendship. And let's keep in touch.